Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate AFL show for season 2016. This is episode 20 and in today's episode I'm going to be looking back at round 14, the second of 3 bye rounds before looking towards round 15, which is this week's round of the 2016 AFL season. Now I'll also be looking towards round 16 a little bit later because there will be no episode next week. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break, a bit of a week off from the show, so there will be no episode next week, and I'll talk more about that as the show progresses. But in the meantime, let's get straight in to looking at round 14. Round 14 started on Thursday night at the Adelaide Oval between the Adelaide Crows and North Melbourne. Now, before I get into this match, I just want to note, you might remember from last week's episode, if you watched it, I said that this was the first Thursday night game of season 2016. It's actually the second Thursday night game of season 2016 because you might remember the 2016 AFL season opened up on a Thursday night in round 1 at the MCG between Richmond and Carlton. So just thought I'd note that, and I guess we all make mistakes. But anyway, this was an interesting game. Of course, two teams who were both in the top 8. We know that North Melbourne won 9 straight before clunking 4 losses with a win in between those. And the Adelaide Crows, they've had a very interesting year. They're starting to really gain some momentum into their game, and if they won this, then their run home is quite simple. There's probably just 1 or 2 they could potentially lose. But anyway, in the first quarter, at quarter time, the Crows led 3-8 to North Melbourne 1-2. You can see there that the Crows kicked 8 behinds in the first quarter. Not really good enough from a Crows point of view. Their chances they weren't really taking at all. And the result was 8 behinds in the first quarter. So, but they had the lead at quarter time, and that was the main thing. At half time, the Adelaide Crows 4-13 to North Melbourne 6-5. Very close game at half time. It was then 8-18 the Adelaide Crows to North Melbourne 9-6 at 3/4 time, and then the Crows actually ran away with the game in the fourth quarter and won the game. The final score being 28 behinds to 100. That is ridiculous. 28 behinds in a game. Absolutely not good enough from a Crows point of view, but they won the game, and that's the main thing. Defeated North Melbourne 10-7-67. The goal kickers in this match, Betts kicked 2 for the Adelaide Crows. Walker also kicked 2, as well as Crouch, Douglas, and that is all from the multiple goal kickers' point of view. And then the singles, Lynch, McGovern, Jenkins and Atkins. North Melbourne goal kickers, you had Thomas who kicked 3, Brown kicked 2, Wood, Harvey, Zeeble, Gibson and Petrie kicked singles each in the game, where just over 37,000 people attended. So a good crowd there, and it was an interesting Thursday night game. It was close for most of it. There was some inaccuracy, of course, like I mentioned, from a Crows point of view. But the Adelaide Crows win, and North Melbourne, going into the bye, they can be sort of happy with themselves. They did win 9 straight. They've just, in the last 5 weeks, lost 4 and won 1, but which is not the best. But they're still in the top 8. They're in an interesting position, and they've just got to... They've just got to coast to home now and try and get as many wins as they can. The Adelaide Crows, though, they could potentially get into the top 4, possibly the top 5. They've got some very interesting games coming up. They've got a simple draw, to be honest, on the way home, and probably only 1 or 2 they could probably lose. So they're starting to gain a lot of momentum, the Adelaide Crows. Friday night at the home of footy, the MCG, it was Collingwood and Fremantle, 2 sides who are in the bottom half of the table this season and very unlikely to make finals. And of course, this was also Pavlich's last game at the MCG. He will be retiring at the end of the season. And, well, it wasn't the best of starts for the Dockers. By the way, it was wet and it was quite miserable at the MCG. And it wasn't the best of starts for the Dockers because they had only one behind at quarter time to Collingwood's 3-4. And really, it was kind of Collingwood's game throughout the entire way. At halftime, it was 7-8 to Fremantle, 1-4. Collingwood were kept goalless in the third quarter, and the Fremantle Dockers kicked 2 goals in the third quarter in what was a pretty low-scoring game, and third quarter, 7-10 to 3-5. Collingwood still had the lead, though, at three-quarter time, and then in the end, the Pies won pretty convincingly, to be honest. 12-13, 85, defeated the Dockers 5-7, 37. The goal kickers, Cox kicked 2, White also kicked 2. Travis Cloke finally got on the goal sheet for Collingwood back in the senior side for this week. He kicked 2. Greenwood, Phillips, DeGoey, Treloar, Smith and Aish kicked singles in this game as well. The Fremantle Dockers goal kickers, Pavlich kicked 2 as well as Ballantyne, and Walters kicked a single. So yeah, not much to say about this game other than the score and the goal kickers. It was a pretty miserable game. It wasn't that interesting, to be honest, but good win to Collingwood, of course. Something that they've been finding very hard to do is to get wins this season. I should mention the score, but the crowd, by the way. Just over 20,000 attended this game, so a very slow kind of crowd number there for a Collingwood home game. But then again, the weather, you can take that into account, and I wouldn't read too much into it. It's just one Friday night that didn't go too well from a crowd's perspective. But nonetheless, Collingwood get the 4 points, they get the chocolates, and interesting game coming up this week in round 15. Saturday there were 3 games, and it started at the MCG with the Saturday afternoon game. It was Richmond and the Brisbane Lions, a game that you would have expected the Tigers to win considering the Lions' form over this season. Only the one win for them coming into this game, and that was against the Gold Coast Suns in the Q Clash at the Gabba a couple of months ago now. And well, Richmond really started off well in this game. It was 5-4 to 2-0 at quarter time with them leading. They led the whole way through, and in the end they won pretty convincingly, the final score being 17-15, 117, defeating the Lions 11-9. 75, the goal kickers for Richmond, Rewalt kicked 4. He had a good game on the score sheet. You had Edwards, Madui, and also Lloyd and Vustelen kicking 2 each. Deledio, Koch and Vickery, Miles and Ellis kicked singles each in this game. We then had the Lions goal kickers. Hipwood kicked 3, Taylor kicked 2, Green, Walker, Skay, Jensen, Martin, and also Pierce Hanley kicking singles each in this game for the Lions. So a good win there for the Tigers. They get another win on the board, something they've also found difficult to, a bit like Collingwood, difficult to get wins this season. The twilight game on Saturday was between the GWS Giants and the Carlton Blues, and it's fair to say the GWS Giants pretty much had a hold on this game throughout the entire match. They led at every change and won the game 18-19, 127, defeating Carlton 9-11, 65 at Spotless Stadium. The goal kickers for the Greater Western Sydney Giants, Johnson, Stevie J kicked 4, Cameron kicked 3, Shield and Kelly kicked 2 each. You then had Williams, Patton, Whitfield, Scully, Congilio, Lobb and Green kicking singles each for the Giants. The Carlton goal kickers, Walker kicked 3, Wright kicked 2, Simpson, Everett, Tutt, and also White kicked singles each for the Blues. Good to see Tutt getting on the scoreboard, recalled this week for the Blues, and got on the scoreboard, which is good to see. But yeah, it was always going to be a tough task for the Blues to go up and defeat the GWS Giants at their home ground of Spotless Stadium, somewhere they've been very, very strong at this year. And the Blues, interesting game coming up in round 15. I'll talk about that very shortly. The last game of Saturday, the only Saturday night game of round 14, it was St Kilda and Geelong, 2009 grand finalists. They, of course, met in 2009 in what was described as one of the best home and away games of that year and ever. And yeah, they met again. Of course, the last time they met, it was a draw. That was last season. So we kind of, you know, Geelong got a really good win against the Dogs the week before. probably expected them to be a bit too strong in this game. But it was far from that. St Kilda really took it up to them early. At quarter time, St Kilda led 4-2 to 1-4. They still had the lead at half time, the Saints, 8-6 to 4-6. And at three-quarter time, the score was St Kilda 12-8 to Geelong 10-9. St Kilda were able to hold on though. They won by 3 points in this game, and what was a great display by them. And Geelong, a lot of questions being asked after this game. The final score, St Kilda 14-9-93, defeating the Cats 13-12-90 at Etihad Stadium. The goal kickers for the Saints, you had Michigan kicking 3, Wright, Nunes and Weller kicked 2 each, McCartan, Bruce, Memory, Grisham and also Stephen kicking singles each in this game. The Geelong goal kickers, McCarthy kicked 3, Hawkins also kicked 3, Kirsten, Lonergan, Dangerfield, Menzel, Murdoch, Bixarves and also Motlop kicked singles each in this game. A lot of questions asked by Geelong. They've of course lost to Colton and Collingwood. Those were the two silly kind of losses that you would have expected them to win. This one is another one they probably were expected to win, but they probably took St Kilda a little bit too lightly. And St Kilda, we know, have improved this year. They just haven't been able to take their form interstate, which has been a problem for them. So, good game there by St Kilda. Good win. They would have felt very happy with the win to be able to defeat a top 8 side, something they've struggled to do this season. And yeah, St Kilda get the chocolates. Geelong don't have top spot now, and they've got a bit of work to do. They've got the bye now, so they've got a bit of work to do in the bye, and then hopefully come out and have a second half from their point of view and get somewhere near that grand final. And the final game of round 14 was a standalone Sunday game at Aurora Stadium in Launceston, Tasmania. It was Hawthorn and the Gold Coast Suns. You might remember that last week I said that I was thinking of going to this game. I did end up going to this game. I travelled up on Sunday and came back Sunday night. And I tell you what, I was surprised with the game I saw. I think everyone in this world actually expected Hawthorn to be far too strong, and that they were in the end. But I think we expected it to be a bit one-sided for most of the match, and it was far from that. Gold Coast Suns really came to play in this game. They led at quarter time 4-4 to 2-1 after Hawthorn kicked the goal in the opening 12 seconds of the game. The Gold Coast Suns were able to pile on a couple before Hawthorn got one back via Lewis, and they actually led at quarter time, which was pretty good. And that was the only quarter, however, they outscored the Hawks, because the Hawks actually outscored them in the second quarter, but they still had a 1 point lead at half time. They were playing some entertaining football, the Gold Coast Suns. I found this a real entertaining game early, and it was great. I was really up and about. It was quite good to see the Gold Coast Suns playing some entertaining football at times. And Lynch, his mark is absolutely entertaining, and Gary Ablett was also back to his best in this first half. And the third quarter, Hawthorn kind of came out and were able to get a bit on top of the Suns. They had a lead at three-quarter time, 8-10 to 6-8. And the Gold Coast Suns, they kept coming. They tried to stay in the game, but the Hawks took the game away from them and won 12-14, 86, defeating the Gold Coast Suns 8-12, 60. Hawks far too strong in the end, and well, top of the table. We'll talk more about that very shortly. But the goal kickers for Hawks, Sicily kicked 3, Hartung kicked 2, Gunston, Lewis, Segler, Bruce, Hill, Burgoyne and Geray kick singles each in this match. Lynch kicked 3 for the Gold Coast Suns. As I mentioned, beautiful mark of the ball. He's becoming a real gun forward this season. Wright, Matera, Ablett, Date and Harbrow kicked singles each in this game. I thought Ablett had a standout performance. He probably, if I was doing the Brownlow votes, I'd give him 3 votes with Mitchell too. He was outstanding in this game, Gary Ablett. Hopefully starting to get back to his best. I know a lot of people doubt that, but hopefully he is, because he might still have a little bit left in him. Harbrow had a good game as well, and in fact Ablett got best player along with Mitchell in the two teams' best players camps. So yeah, just over 10,000 at Aurora Stadium. Very entertaining game. Really enjoyed it. I was happy that I went, and yeah, I'm going to be seeing the Gold Coast Suns again in a couple of weeks in the Q Clash. So looking forward to seeing what they can serve up in that game when I see them next. Okay, time now to have a look at the stats leaders after round 14. I'll start with the leading goal kickers. Franklin leads the Coleman medal with 47 goals. You then have Kennedy just 1 goal behind him on 46. Lynch has risen up to third on 42. He's always been in the top 5 though throughout the year, and so he should be. He's been playing some great football. Fourth on 38 is Josh Jenkins from the Adelaide Crows. Eddie Betts in fifth, also from the Adelaide Crows, on 35 goals. You then had the leading disposals. Lachie Neale, who signed a contract extension for the Fremantle Dockers just a couple of days ago, leads on 459 disposals. Second is Patrick Dangerfield on 435. On 403 from the Sydney Swans, it is Dan Handlebury. Adam Treloar on fourth with 401 disposals, and then Lockie Hunter has fell to fifth on 398 disposals. You have the leading marks. Rewalt leads the marks on 124. Heath Shaw is second on 122. On 100 marks, it is Kade Simpson from the Carlton Football Club. He's on third. Also from the Carlton Football Club is Sam Docherty. They're good markers there at the Carlton Football Club. He's fourth on 99 marks. You then have Ben Reid on 96 marks in fifth. And then finally the tackles from Hawthorn. Liam Shields with 110 on first. Andrew Swallow is on 107 tackles in second. Matt Prittis in third on 97 tackles. Levi Greenwood in fourth on 95 tackles. And then fifth is Rory Sloane from the Adelaide Crows on 94 tackles. That is the stats leaders after round 14. And then finally, let's round out our round 14 wrap-up with the ladder, and Hawthorn are top of the table as they go into their bye this week. They are on top of the world with 11 wins and 3 losses. I know they haven't played their best football, but I tell you what, they have got wins, and they've only had 3 losses. So it's really saying something, really, isn't it? That they're well and truly in the grand final hunt. They could possibly have 4 in a row at the end of the season. So they didn't play their best football on Sunday, but they kind of did in the end, and that's what got them over the line. And I guess that's what good sides do. And well, if they did that in finals, in a grand final, who cares? They would win and they'd have the trophy because you know, they win the match, and that's what matters in the end. So second is the Sydney Swans. They had the bye. They're coming off the bye as we head into round 15. The Geelong Cats have fell to third after being on top of the ladder, which is quite poor from their point of view. The GWS Giants round out the top 4. North Melbourne have, after winning 9 straight, have fell to fifth as they go into the bye. The Adelaide Crows 6, and the Western Bulldogs have fell to 7th, but they had a bye, and they are refreshed and ready to go for round 15. The West Coast Eagles round out the top 8, and then you can see the bottom half there. Essendon still on the bottom of the ladder. Okay, time now to get into round 15, and it starts on Thursday night at Domain Stadium in Perth between the West Coast Eagles and the Essendon Bombers. Not the most advertising game to start round 15, but I'm hoping, after what we saw on Sunday where the Gold Coast Suns took it up to Hawthorn, I'm hoping that this could possibly be the same, but I know a lot of people are doubting that. In fact, the odds are quite large to suggest that Essendon will have any chance to at least get within 50 points of the margin at the end of the game. So I'm expecting a big win from the West Coast Eagles. We know that they lost to the Adelaide Crows the last time they were at home, so they'll be looking to bounce back pretty strongly against Essendon on Thursday night. Won't be the most advertising game, but I'll watch it, and hopefully we see some statement from the West Coast Eagles coming out of this game. And by the way, this game will start at 8:10 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, so it's a bit of a late game for those who don't live in Perth. Friday night, an interesting game this one. Port Adelaide and Richmond met in an elimination final a couple of years ago. They've already met once this season at the MCG. Port Adelaide won that one. They now meet again at the Adelaide Oval. This game starting at 7:50 p.m. You'd expect Port Adelaide to win this game considering it's at home, but you never know. Richmond did get a win on the weekend against the Brisbane Lions, and it could go either way, but I think the Port Adelaide Football Club will be far too strong in this game. Should be an interesting Friday night game though, a bottom half clash. Saturday there are 3 games, and really looking forward to these 3 games actually, because they've all got a bit of interest about it. I'll start with the first game at 1:40 p.m. at Metricon Stadium in the beautiful Gold Coast. It is the Gold Coast Suns and St Kilda. We know that St Kilda played very well against Geelong and got the win, but they've had trouble taking their form interstate, and that's where the Gold Coast Suns really need to take a advantage of St Kilda here, because they can be pretty vulnerable when they go interstate. So the Gold Coast Suns, we know, have put the last couple of weeks with the bye in between have actually played some decent football. So I think this is their chance to get a win. They need to get a win. They haven't got many of them this season, or at least they haven't got many of them for a couple of months now. So big game for them, I think, the Gold Coast Suns. I think they'll win this game. I'm going to tip them at home. I think they can scrape through against St Kilda. Should be a good game though. Looking forward to it. And the twilight game, the game after this game at 4:35 p.m. at the SCG, it is the Sydney Swans and the Western Bulldogs. Looking forward to this game as well. You know that I'm a Western Bulldogs supporter. Hoping that the Dogs bounce back and get a win after their loss to Geelong. But I tell you what, the Sydney Swans are going to be hard to beat over there at the SCG. They're undefeated there. I don't think there's been a game where they've actually that's actually been close when they've played at the SCG this year. I think they've all won them pretty convincingly. So I'm really expecting the Sydney Swans to win this game, but I'm hoping that the Dogs can scrape through. They did it last year. They won at the SCG against the Swans. I'm going to tip the Swans, though, to win this one. I think they will win in what will be a good game, I think. The Saturday night game is between traditional rivals Collingwood and Carlton at the MCG, 7:25 p.m. Looking forward to ending the Saturday with this game. It's going to be a beauty. We know that the Carlton Football Club defeated this mob back a couple of rounds ago, and Collingwood played an interesting game against the Dockers. It was a good game by them. Not sure which way this game's going to go though. I think I'll wait till the end of the show to pick my tip. I'm thinking Collingwood, but I think they need to keep Cloak in. They can't drop Cloak this week. If they drop Cloak, I'm going to say Carlton. The final game of round 15 is a standalone Sunday game, just like there was in round 14. This game is between Melbourne and the Adelaide Crows, 3:20 p.m. at the MCG. Looking forward to this one. Could be a good game, this one. We know that Melbourne's been better this year, and I'd be expecting the Crows to win this, though. I'm going to tip them, but I'm expecting a good game, though. I think it will be close, but the Crows should win. And finally, the byes in round 15, the Brisbane Lions, Fremantle Dockers, GWS Giants, Geelong, Hawks and North Melbourne all have the rest this week in the last bye round of this year, of course. Okay, now, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, I'm going to be taking a break from the show next week. I won't be doing any content on the channel, so there'll be no episode next week. So I'm going to go through round 16 with you now, give you my early tips as well as the games and the details. I'll go through this really quick. So I'll start with the Thursday night game to start round 16. It is Port Adelaide and Hawthorn. Should be an interesting clash. This one would expect Hawthorn to win that though. Friday night at Simmons Stadium. This is probably the match of the round, to be honest. Geelong and the Sydney Swans. I think I'll tip Geelong there at Simmons Stadium, but I'm expecting that to be a real good game. Looking forward to that one. Saturday there's 4 games. GWS Giants and Collingwood start things off at Spotless Stadium, 1:40 p.m. Would expect the GWS Giants to win that. The game that I'm going to in round 16, it is the Gold Coast Suns and the Brisbane Lions. My first Q clash. Looking forward to this one. I know it's not the biggest derby you can find in the AFL, but it is a big game, of course. Both sides struggling, so they'll both want wins out of this game. That's the twilight game on Saturday in round 16. The 2 Saturday night games, Western Bulldogs and Richmond at Etihad Stadium, 7:25. Western Bulldogs should win that one. Melbourne and Freo is the other Saturday night game at TIO Stadium in Darwin. 7:40 p.m. that game starts. And I'm going to be tipping Melbourne for that one. I think Melbourne could win that one. They were disappointing when they went to Alice Springs, though, in their other interstate home game. That was against Port Adelaide. They were poor in that one. And then 3 Sunday games. Carlton and the Adelaide Crows start things off at 1:10 p.m. at the MCG. The Crows should win that. That will be their second straight MCG game. Of course, they are playing the Melbourne Demons at the MCG in round 15. The West Coast Eagles and North Melbourne. Probably another match of the round, you would say, at Domain Stadium, starting at 3:20 p.m. It's the mid-afternoon game on Sunday. I think West Coast Eagles will win this one, but it should be a close game. Expecting a beauty in that game. And the final game of round 16, Essendon and St Kilda. That game at Etihad Stadium, the twilight game of Sunday. So that is round 16. Do hope you enjoyed round 16. There's some good games in that one. So looking forward to that round. And that is it for this episode of the Ultimate AFL Show, episode 20. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video, as well as subscribing. As I mentioned, taking a week off next week, so there'll be no episode, but I will be back in a couple of weeks' time to continue the Ultimate AFL Show for season 2016. I thank you all for your support. I know there's a lot of people out there who support me in doing this show, and I thank you very much for that. And can't wait to continue the show in a couple of weeks' time. So until then, enjoy your AFL. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, bye for now.